Welcome back to the X Podcast. I am sitting across from Tim Moore. You're listening to the voice of Russ Moore. And we have adjacent what Tim would call
let's not
toes in the brown Zach. How do you feel about that Freudian slip of the tongue of last episode from Chief over here?
Okay, well, this is a good time for me to clear the air. The toes in the water or toes in the brown, however you want to call it.
Whoa.
I don't know if I appreciate or like any of those references. So
I blame Russ for that.
Hold on a second. Is it God, the universe, or your mom's fault that you have the literal exact same name as a famous country star?
I don't know whose fault it is.
Which one was here first? I'm going to assume
He was.
The band.
He's older than I am.
The band.
So, yeah, the band. But technically the band didn't exist before I was born.
That's what I'm saying.
So therefore I was here first.
You also yourself play on your own name because you named your daughter Charlie Brown.
Is that like Santa play?
Yeah, can we clear the air? When you say Santa play, what? Actually, no. I had therapy over the break to deal with the trauma you caused. Okay.
Right now, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Sure.
Mr. Wordsmith Wiggle Boy over here.
Wigglesworth?
Wordsmith Wiggle Boy. Can we have a conversation about both of your choice of words?
I have no problem with the choice of my words.
I need you to come up with a new nickname for me on the podcast right now.
Well, should we go off the fact that you go by Zach, but end every email and voicemail with Zachary? Should we go more
like
official?
That?
Yeah.
In our new nickname, Lord Zachary.
Lord Twinkles, actually.
Yeah, so his name is Twinkles, by the way, on passwords, emails, and when we do staff
avatars
outings.
and gaming tags.
Right. I also just learned before this podcast began what is it LARPing is?
LARPing. Yeah, Zach likes to go LARPing every Friday.
No, I
He
don't.
dresses up, goes out in a park.
No, I do not.
I
categorically
practices
deny any
incantations on other people.
Categorically deny any of these accusations. LARPing, though, is live action roleplay. There are people who dress up.
I like how you say it just like it's normal. You just it rolls off the tongue.
Oh, trust me, there's nothing normal about people that do live action roleplay.
What was it last night? Oh,
No, apologies
you asked
if
me
you do.
who Matt Mercer was.
Yeah, we have an interesting group text from. There was a time. I don't know if you heard about this. Whoa, Zachary just dropped his ring on the table and it shattered. You know what? Let's get started.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to get started. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's get started.
Enough bantering.
Zachary is the new nickname.
That's not a nickname. Well,
Harry Zachary.
Not any better.
How about
I prefer toes in the brown.
Harry Zachary. Zachary Potter.
We'll keep trying. We'll keep trying.
Harry Brown.
Zachary with a big mind. We have all these. I feel like a lot of these are inside type of nicknames.
If you're gonna go Harry, why not homeschool Harry? Can we start calling you
Zachary
homeschool
Harry Brown?
Okay.
I like it.
This has turned into the opposite.
There comes homeschool Harry.
Oh,
This is the opposite of what.
listen, I
this moment
can't
was
grow a
supposed to
beard,
be.
so I'm jealous.
Yeah,
Ever since the
Neither can
6th
he.
grade.
Actually,
Started shaving.
I would really like to see you with a beard.
it looks horrible. I wish I could grow a beard.
You can't.
But
It-
it looks
it-
like you had the
You look dirty.
the facial.
When I can grow a decent 5 o'clock shadow, but
then-
if I but if
Hey,
But you
right
just
here at
let
the
it go.
table.
But when
we
it's-
want 5 o'clock shadow this Sunday.
Yep.
okay, maybe
No, I want to see
Maybe.
it. 5 o'clock shadow.
okay.
Wait,
Just
okay,
let it go.
I can grow a 5 o'clock shadow. It'll take me until Friday at 5 o'clock, and then I'll be dirty. Like that's what my wife always says.
What?
Like it just she
What?
always
What?
says if I don't shave, she can tell by the end of
Yeah.
the day. She goes, "You didn't shave today, did you?" No. She's like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Why?" She always says it makes you look dirty. like when it grows in a little stubbly and it looks bad. She was like, "It just makes your face look dirty."
Well,
So,
I'm sorry for that emotion.
but I am excited. I've never seen you with a 5 o'clock shadow.
You have, because people, anytime
No.
I don't shave for 3 or 4 days, people always go, oh, it looks good. Why
When do
don't you
we see
this?
this? I've never seen
never
it.
remember seeing you.
I
any
bet
sort
you're
of
going on one full day. You
longer.
didn't shave this morning, did you?
No.
I can tell you look dirty.
Thank you. Look filthy.
Okay.
But if I start to grow like an actual beard like Zach's here, it grows in splotchy and red. It actually has a red tint to it.
Whoa!
Yes. I don't know why, but my
You're
facial
a
hair has a
redhead?
red tint. No, only on my face.
That's
I want to see it.
Same with me. The red is in the
Well,
beard. But
Yeah, I see that, but I mean, I haven't seen it on him. I kind of want to see it.
Okay, for our
Anyways.
listeners and viewers.
There,
we're
we've
so
already
sorry.
lost
We're-
everybody. This is a waste of time. Let's
We
go.
okay,
We have
so
something to talk about.
this past Sunday you began a powerful new series that I have not been able to catch up on
So
yet.
then, you
but
don't know.
I've heard it's amazing, and all the quotes from it were great. And we've talked about this template for a long time. This idea of who you can be in a certain amount of time. We underestimate what can happen in a day. In a short amount of time, we overestimate what can happen in a short amount of time. We underestimate what can happen in the long haul with consistent habits and vision and goals. And so I'm really excited. It's called Me in 3.
Yep.
But sadly, I missed it because I was in Seattle. One of our friends, EJ, was inducted as a pastor.
EJ Brown.
EJ Brown?
No relation to
No
Nope.
relation
Zachary,
to Zachary
homeschool Harry
Brown.
Brown.
No relation to homeschool Harry. He, but we became ministry friends in Atlanta. It's really cool because, anyways, long cool story.
Yeah.
We get into some other time. But anyways, it was a really meaningful, surreal trip and time with him. About 50 of his ministry friends and family from all over the country. Atlanta, Dallas, Memphis. Even his best friend who's a chaplain right now in Italy flew in.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
it
cool.
was.
How many people showed up for it? That's pretty awesome.
Oh, it
cool.
was amazing. And
I'd have 3 people show up.
no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Oh, yeah. We'll talk about my fear later.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But anyways, one of the mornings I was there, he asked me, because you know me, if you don't know me, whenever I go to these kind of cities, I've been to Seattle once before, but I found a way to slip into the city and do my own thing and explore and do all the rest things. But one particular Saturday, he asked me to stay back because he technically lives in Tacoma. I didn't realize that SeaTac, Seattle Tacoma, is pretty much DFW. So if you're familiar with Texas at all, it's Dallas-Fort Worth. It's like the middle city in between Seattle and Tacoma, and that's where his church is. And he asked me to stay behind, have breakfast with him and some of his friends, just like 5 or 6 of us. Really cool breakfast, coffee time. But one of the guys he's been mentoring that flew in from Dallas, first time on a plane, 20 years old, young kid, but EJ's just been kind of like developing him, mentoring him, teaching him, and you can tell he feels kind of this tug towards vocational, full-time, employed ministry.
Yeah.
And so you could tell his wheels are turning, and he took a moment and then just asked, "Hey, can I ask you something?" I said, "Sure." He said, "How do you know if you're called into full-time ministry?" He said, "Would you mind telling me your story?" And so we ended up having like a beautiful conversation. All of us did. I shared a little bit of my story, wisdom that was passed down to me when I was deciphering what I'm going to do with my life, collective wisdom I've heard from, down the years that I think is helpful to people asking that question. But anyways, we can go back to that larger question later, but it reminds me of something we've been talking about for a while now, which is we get a lot of people from time to time ask us what it's like to work in church, and more specifically, what it's like to work in this church. And one of the things we kind of talk about a lot that it could be interesting is I think a lot of people have a certain impression of what it's like to be in ministry before they're in
Yeah.
ministry.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think it differs, but I think a lot of times, I'm curious what y'all think. I think a lot of times people that are really genuinely passionate about Jesus, passionate about the church.
Yeah.
I don't know what they have in mind. I think sometimes maybe they have in mind, man, we're going to pray all day.
Yes. Yes.
We're going to have, it's going to be an all day worship set.
Yeah.
We're going to like pray for each other.
Yeah.
We're going to be listening to Elevation, and it's just going to be, man, this spiritual high, and I'll get paid for it.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you guys experience from the people you talk to?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yep.
What do you think
I mean-
people? Yeah.
Oh, good.
What do you think people have in mind? Because I'm sure y'all have that too. If people ask, questions and be curious of what it's like behind the scenes at church, especially our church.
I think for me, a lot of people see. So a lot of who we are, we will actually put out for people to see, like on social media, different things like that. We're not afraid to be true to who we are, and I think a lot of people see like a lot of fun, or they see kind of what we do, and they just think, not maybe is it spiritual, but it's also a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people sometimes have that impression that it can be a lot of fun. But then I think when you begin to actually peel back some of the layers, and you understand what we do day in and day out, that yes, it's spiritual, yes, it's fun, but it's also work.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot that goes into making church happen kind of on a weekend and week out basis.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. The best way I think to describe it is, I think the whole idea of a calling and a vocational ministry aside, because I think that's a different piece of this, but I think what people experience when we're together, the energy, the excitement, the momentum of the Sunday gatherings, there's something special that happens in a church on Sunday. I think that's one of the attractional thing to church experience. It's not just the music and the message, but I think it's the environment, it's the people, it's the community, it's seeing each other, it's the joy that people experience. Yeah. I think what sometimes gets missed is people, when their primary interactions with us is in those environments, that they just assume that it's kind of like that all the time. Mm-hmm. And we constantly have people that I think are surprised when they show up in a job or another situation and find out, oh no, you got meetings you have to go to. There's planning. There's paperwork. There's software programs that you have to know how to do. There's workflows that you have to get in. There's tickets that you have to close when people, through forms and inquiries and things like that. So a lot of people just don't know that there's really a business side to making the community aspect work. Mm-hmm. The community, it's interesting because, the church in itself is like an organic community. Mm-hmm. That, like, the essence of it is the organic nature of a community. But for an organization as a church to function, there is a lot of organizational work that has to be done behind the scenes.
Yep.
And so maybe a good day for us just to peel back the curtain and say, what does it look like Monday through Thursday? What does it look like during the week? And I think what a lot of people may not know is most people, we've kind of allowed some flexibility in schedules as of late, but there's a schedule. There's being hit at a certain time on Monday and a full work day, and there's meetings, and we do have fun.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the values that we just really, that we kind of hold on to for our team. But
yeah, I think that it would be easy for people, and again, we're talking specifically the context of our staff, our church, because just like you, it'd be one thing to say, well, what's it like to work at a business? Well, it depends on what business.
Yeah.
Same thing with church. Every church is so different. Every church culture is so different.
Yeah.
With our church culture and staff, I think it'd be easy to fall into one of two extremes of errors. I think on our end, we should not take for granted what we're used to.
Right.
Yeah.
That we, in many ways, we are so fortunate that it's not a perfect, no place is perfect. Yeah. But it is a really healthy, enjoyable place to work for the most part.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate that most of us are really, really good friends.
Yep.
We're not perfect, but it is a really healthy place. There is a lot of laughter. We do really invest in our employees. We really do prioritize celebration and fun and honor and treating people well and honoring people well and caring about each other's families, emotional health, spiritual health, physical. Like it is in many ways a dream place to work. So I think it'd be wrong to minimize that or take that for granted on one end. But on the other end, again, everybody's perspective of church is different. But it does seem that some people that are on the outside probably would be surprised by, as fun as we are, we're also equally serious.
Yeah.
And probably comparatively to a lot of churches, our culture is high feedback. If you have thin skin, it's going to be tough. We're fast paced. If you're used to kind of slow, casual, that you'd struggle.
And just for real quick, I want to pause on just that because some people's only experience with church may have been ours. We have a lot of people that come to our church and maybe for the first time. And I've always been surprised at this because this has kind of been, the only place I've worked outside of business has been this church, right? Outside of my business or, public sector, working for state government, federal government, other things, right?
You ran a donut shop before this.
And when I ran a donut shop, again. But I didn't run a donut shop. But one of the things that I am always surprised by is to hear about different church environments where the staff don't really work. They do exist. I'm like shocked when I hear it. Well, no, seriously, like where it's like, the pastor might come in for about 4 hours that week.
Pastors are good at playing golf and preaching on the weekends.
Well, I'm not going to say that's what they do. I've heard of churches around here that I've always gotten shocked and surprised when someone else would tell me, yeah, did you know that's that? And they, the pastor, I don't know about all the staff, but I've heard this about some places, about all of the staff, that it's like, they come in maybe 4 hours a week to have whatever, and they just kind of like, get their little things done for the ministry or whatever, and it's very loose and non-committal. That sounds bad. I'm not saying they're not committed. I'm just saying like the requirements of we create a culture and an environment in an office environment. Some places don't. And so I just want to highlight that, as you were just saying, not all churches and not all cultures and staff environments are the same. Like we intentional, like I remember the pandemic where we're all on Zoom and disconnected for a few months, and honestly, I was like, "This is bogus. I can't wait to be back together." I enjoy the collaborative nature of what we do, the creative nature that happens in those kind of environments. I miss the fun. Like these are, I find, and I think most people do when they get on our staff, is very quickly the people that they are doing ministry with become either friends, you find close community, and it feels like family. It really does. It feels like family, and I think what you said about describing it, I think we have fun, but we also run hard.
And it's interesting. You can almost tell what a culture's like by what would stand out with a sore thumb. Here, if you don't know how to have fun, you're going to stand out. Here, if you don't work hard, you're also going to stand out. It's almost like an unofficial self-policing to where if you're not working hard, but you're also not having fun, and you take yourself too seriously. Also, I think, and this is a good thing, I think our culture is one of those things where humility is cool. If you start not being humble, you're going to stand out. Were you going to say something?
Well, I was going to sum up probably a good word to kind of sum up some things you were saying, and I was talking about this with Rebecca last night, is I think our culture is a place where high expectations are the norm. And I think that, there's a lot of places where maybe that's not the case. And so it's fun. We enjoy being together, but also there's a sense of, we're here to accomplish something. We're here to get things done. And as you're working, there's both high expectations placed on us by ourselves, but also our leadership and where we're at. And because we feel like it's important what we do.
There's very high expectations. It's high vision, high demand. Okay, so, let's go behind, because you mentioned Monday through our office hours are Monday through Thursday for most employees. People it is funny. I still have people, not often, but from time to time, be like, so, like, what's your job during the week? Like, do you get paid by the church? And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is like my full time. So some people might be surprised to hear we have about 20 paid employees.
20 full-time
paid employees on staff. People may not know that.
We have probably a few like part-time and some obviously some stipend positions as well.
So let's peel the layers behind the scenes. It's funny because a lot of times I'll bring an idea of like something personal, and you will be like, I don't think anybody cares. This is one of those ones that I'm like, I don't think anybody's going to care about this, but
let's talk about your struggle with receipts.
Homeschool Harry. My struggle with receipts.
I'm just kidding. I was just trying to think of some funny way to put it.
No, that's probably not false.
Do you struggle with receipts? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not the greatest.
But that's
Penny and Jenny. I owe you my life. I love you. But that's a great example. There's and depending on your role, and we're also like any other organization, we've evolved over time and how, like, what rhythms are like and like what, like for instance, I remember when I first got here, like there's some churches where, I don't even know this is where we should start, but there's some churches that maybe to your point earlier, everything is what somebody would deem as spiritual. They literally do pray all the time. And that, which is awesome.
Yeah.
That's not.
But you came and said, I'm just not really into that.
No,
And
that's
can we
not-
just pray on Sunday?
That's
And
not
so
true
we
at all.
said, okay.
But it's funny. But one of the people that that I was leading when we were in Lancaster one day asked me. They said, "Hey, I saw one of the people on our team like praying and doing their devotion." And he wasn't trying to tattle. He's like, "How do you feel about that?" Because our last boss, like, you never ever did that, like, or you'd be in trouble. And I'm like, I think there's a balance. I think when you come to work, and just like any other job, your quote unquote devotions, if you're a follower of Jesus, that should be something you did at home before you come.
Right.
I said at the same time there is, and maybe this is where we should dive in. There is an interesting overlap, complex nature to what we do, to where it is also spiritual.
Yeah.
And so I told this person, it was our youth pastor at the time, I said, "Hey, if, look, like, don't come in here because you overslept into your devotions.
Yeah.
But if you got a Wednesday
preparing
night
for stuff.
something coming up, and you want to gather some leaders and spend some time in prayer, then do that. As long as you're getting your work done, I'm not going to be a stickler for that. And so part of it, just like any organization, is finding culturally what are our rhythms, how do we flow in that kind of stuff, how do we give rope but not let things be abused or taken for granted.
So speaking to rhythms,
okay,
because I don't want to leave the poor people hanging, you were starting to talk through like some of the work week and what that looked like. If I can sum up maybe in 30 seconds or less, Monday we come in, we do like kind of an all-staff rally. We split out from there into departmental meetings and get some things done. And then we kind of end Monday looking forward to next Sunday. Tuesday's a day that we all kind of spread out to work on the things that we talked about on Monday and get some things done. Trying to wrap all that up by Wednesday so that by Thursday, as we're coming in here, we're tying the final bow. So we're kind of overseeing, okay, let's make sure all the things are ready for Sunday. We have everything set in place. We're good to go so that by the time we're leaving on Thursday, we're ready to go for the weekend. We also try to allot some time on Thursday to maybe look ahead to future beyond things down the road.
Yeah, a corporate mantra we had brought in 2018 that we don't really follow, but kind of related to what you're saying, is this whole idea of meeting Monday, tackle Tuesday, wrap up Wednesday, thinking Thursday. The part of that stays consistent is Mondays.
Yes. Yes.
So let's just be really honest about it.
Correct.
Mondays, in case this doesn't bore anybody to tears, basically, our office hours are 9 to 5, Monday through Thursday, and then, of course, all day Sunday. And we can go into what quote unquote hours look like when you're in ministry anyways, because the truth is, depending on your level of ministry, you're never really off. Yeah. You add into that events, dinners, taking people out, like it's just an influx fluid kind of schedule, to be honest. But Mondays, 9 o'clock, 9:15, we have rally, and that is all the staff comes together. If you're a servant, if you're a volunteer, what we call servant leaders on Sundays, is kind of our version of what we do on Sundays before the experience. We stand in a circle and we take two of our cultural standards, values, which are honor and celebration, and we take time to celebrate what happened on the weekend. And it's a high priority for us. For unity's sake, for morale, for vision, we celebrate what's going on, what God did. We celebrate life change. We celebrate stories of how people were impacted. We celebrate. And then we take a moment to honor. It's so easy. We just think unity is the glue and the power that makes a culture and a team effective. And so we take time to see each other, and we bring a football that actually has our standards on it, and we throw the football, and we take time to see each other and celebrate each other. And then we switch this up all the time. It might be a devotion, quick leadership thought that follows that. Sometimes we'll eat a quick meal together. Sometimes about once every 2 months we'll do an all-staff, which is half a day of leadership development, or we'll bring in somebody. We'll spend time, maybe occasionally Tucker will bring in an acoustic guitar. We'll sing, pray together, whatever. It can look different, and we are always constantly experimenting with rhythms. But that's rally. That's basically 9:15 to 9:45, 10 o'clock. And then different departments break up into different meetings throughout the day. One of the universal meetings that a lot of people are in is called Tech Meeting. So maybe we should talk about that for a minute. And that's basically people that are involved in programming, production, and for whatever reason, me,
We haven't figured that out yet.
At times. And we're reviewing the last weekend and looking forward to the next couple weekends.
Yeah.
And we're looking at rundowns. We're looking at planning. And that can go from anywhere from
1 hour
2:30 to 4:30, whatever.
Doesn't need to.
It doesn't need to.
It just does.
And then, honestly, Tuesdays through Thursdays are, in case you really care, right now it's Wednesday. We record our podcast typically 1 o'clock on Wednesdays. Tuesdays, we're experimenting with hybrid right now. So a lot of our team on Tuesdays specifically, like for me, that is at least every other week a content creation day where I'll kind of go off site and I'll work hybrid, and whether it's working on a lab or a message or something for the future, some sort of endeavor we're working on higher level, I'll try to work on that. And then Wednesday and Thursday, we're getting ready. We're meeting with people. All of us are meeting with people throughout the week. We're meeting with our teams. We're meeting with people from the church. We're planning. We're getting stuff done. But I don't know if y'all feel like this. I feel like, it's funny when people are like, what does your week look like? I mean, besides somewhat Monday, every week looks different. And especially with a church like ours, we're pretty event-driven. There's so many events that are coming up. There's so many special occasions. There's so many special elements, usually on Sundays, or there's some outreach week coming up, or there's Easter, or there's Christmas, and so every week just looks so different. And because of the nature of your leadership, we're always moving into new fields. We're always pioneering. We're always trying new things. And so I feel like just any day, there's no, I don't know about how y'all feel. I feel like there's no typical Wednesday.
I don't think there's a typical week.
No, it really varies. From week to week.
So I don't know if any of that rambling helped.
Yeah, I think it's a good general overview, and it is dynamic, I would say, the environment, because of the flow of the year, the calendar.
Yeah.
And
That
so just like we
dictates what
put out
we're working
seasons
on.
within our church, it really does, youth have their own kind of rhythms that they have. They got and the reason why it's so dynamic is because, they'll have winter camp coming up. So there'll be all kinds of preparation going into that. There'll be extra hours. There'll be, things like that happening. So I think there's a variety of things that are happening during the week. It's not static.
Yeah.
It's not everybody just in here doing the same thing Monday through Friday, Thursday.
Well, all the ministries are doing their own things. I think it might be interesting for people to hear that, one thing that we do is we have internal goals that we have departmentally and even across the entire ministry. We'll even have, there's a book, 4 Disciplines of Execution, that talks about having a wildly important goal that we have. And so we have those internally that we say, hey, we've come together, through meetings and strategy and thought and planning, said this is kind of where we're moving as a staff and we'll do it for the course of a year, and then we'll kind of break that out as to different teams and how we're going to do things like that.
Yeah.
So there are objectives internally within the context of that work week that we are making strides to, moving towards. We're getting reports on analytics and different things like that.
No, I think you bring up a good point, which is I think some people imagine that ministry is, I'm trying to think of a really good term for this.
Silos?
I was going to say more of I guess what I don't want people to think is we babysit the ministry. We don't just whatever need comes up, we take care of. And I think people know us probably know that, but we are very intentional about what we're building.
Yes.
And so we'll have a roadmap for what the next year, 2 years, 3 years, of what we're building toward. Our internal team and staff from this last fall kind of have a picture of what we're building toward. And we're constantly developing new things, which we'll be talking about in the future in our church, that we're always, I think we never settle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a great way of saying it as a church, and that spills over to what we do as a staff.
Yeah.
And so there are, like you said, there are objectives. There are things we're pursuing. We measure, and then we also pursue things. And so we constantly are measuring, how are we doing it? Are we growing this? What areas aren't doing well? How do we need to go back and visit? Like, this isn't working well. What do we need to kill?
Yeah, this may be, you guys have brought up some words that are probably good, like when you said high expectation.
Yeah.
I think another word, I mean, I know it's a buzzword, but I think another word that would shock people until they got behind scenes is intentional.
Yeah.
That I mean, from culture to decor to goals that are set to the way we approach stuff, to language used, to communication development, to leadership development, to servant leaders, to feedback. We are, and not as a backpack, because not everybody would like this. I'm not even saying this in a braggy way, but I'm just saying we're probably more anal and intentional than people would expect. And it doesn't mean we're always right.
Right.
So that's
we
not
nitpick.
We nitpick
to make it great.
And so
that's the
so
goal.
and we get it wrong a lot.
I wouldn't say,
but we're highly intentional on why and how we do everything we do.
To give an example, I mean, just really in the minutia, we just got done with Christmas experiences here at the church, and as part of that, this thing that we do every year. I mean, this is something we've done every year for the last 5 years. Is we take a survey at the end of every Christmas experience. Well, I can't tell you the amount of time that went into picking each question.
Oh yeah, we
on that
obsess
survey,
over it.
and then thinking about, okay, well, how long do we want it to be in the experience? And then how are we going to phrase like getting into getting people to take it? How do we want people to take it? I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, hours of thought that go into just that one small piece of a Christmas experience, of something that we've done for 5 years now. So you think we'd be good at it.
Yeah, we'll spend hours on 3 minutes of hosting and what are we going to say and how long and this is funny. I think I just told y'all, but shout out to Tommy. He's been coming for a couple of years, and we go to the same gym, work out together. And about a month ago, we're just on the treadmill, and he's like, what's crazy? He goes, I was looking this past Sunday, and like he didn't know how to describe it. Basically, the lower thirds. He's like, the lower third graphic was the exact same graphic as from the series that they had the verse in, and he goes, I just want, and it was kind of one of those cool, like, he goes, if you don't think people notice, like, we notice. He's like, all the little, because, like, one of our values is excellence. Excellence is our presentation.
Yeah.
And so we spend a disproportionate amount of time and energy, not perfectionism, but endeavoring for a spirit of excellence in everything we do. And we believe in the power of beauty and artistry and design.
If you don't appreciate that, you will not enjoy working here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you are not about the presentation of what you're creating and it being excellent. I mean, we have a funny text thread that was off something that we started years and years ago, but then the thread got revived, and it's called Small Church. And that's not the knock about size of church. It's more about mentality of church.
Yes.
Mindset. The mindset being an environment that someone doesn't really care if it looks bad. Yeah. And so we'll go around, and when we see something that looks like that does not belong, somebody, I mean, I remember a long, long time ago, it's like the whole idea.
Talk about what drives you crazy?
It's like just taking a sign and posting it on there.
This is what drives you crazy. Water bottle left on stage.
Oh, yeah. If I see a water bottle left on the platform while the band's already started, I've like texted someone and going, who left a water bottle on this stage?
And somebody may be listening to this thinking, that is so picky. But I'll never forget something. I listened to a Stephen Furtick small group leader training 15 years ago, and he made this statement. He said, environment is always the last 10% you think about, but it's the first 10% people notice. Mm-hmm. So while it may sound picky, what we know is that the collective elements that people, through their five senses, experience when they walk into a place is the sermon before the sermon.
Yep.
Before you ever open your mouth, they have non-verbally heard a message preached about how important this is and how much this matters.
I have at times literally would be outside picking some weeds out on a Sunday morning because I can't stand the way it looks, and imagining first-time guests walking up and seeing them. I'm not saying we get them all the time, but like that kind of stuff just drives me nuts because of what you said. That we are not just presenting, like, I don't look at it like, well, we're presenting ourselves. We're presenting the gospel. We're presenting it could be the first time or someone's ever been in church. We want them to have an excellent experience. So, and that's not just in what happens in the room, auditorium, that matters. That's why we spend a lot of time. We obsess. I mean, if people knew how much we would obsess over a set plan and go, we have a key change from B flat to, C. This isn't good.
I mean, honestly, we're outing ourselves, and then it's not. I really hope anybody listening.
B2C.
First off, I just don't know if anybody cares, but if they do care, it's not a braggy thing. I think people would honestly think we're maniacs.
Yeah. No, I do too. I mean,
because we probably seem so laid back on Sundays, but it's also we are maniacs about details.
Yeah.
But I think that can be one of the things. We open up talking about the question of what it looks like to work in ministry. I think that can be one of the things that kind of turns things on its head, because you get into ministry sometimes with the goal of I want to help people, or I want to reach people. Well, the way you reach people is making sure the trash is picked up.
So pick up trash.
And it just I think it maybe is a I don't want to say missed expectations, but it just your experience is different than what you expect going into ministry.
I agree. Because you're going to get somebody fussing at you because of the way you said that in a hosting moment. Do you know what I mean? And you're like, geez, is it that big of a deal? Yes, it is. And it's kind of the whole, it's like you allow one water bottle and don't care. Guess what's going to happen? Next time you're going to end up with 3 or 4 water bottles on there. And I'm just saying that stuff grows. So it's all about just maintaining the culture of the experience that people have. And so we obsess over key changes and going, that's awkward. Where are we going to get this weird transition key change to? Is this moment, how long have people been standing? We actually do talk about that. We talk about in a worship set like this, okay, we're going into a baptism moment, but out of it, we're coming to that. Should we have them sit before we do the baptism moment, or after it, we do what's the energy that we want to have in this transition moment? I mean, we talk about a variety of things.
And if you're
even like the screen changing, like that. You see that screen just changed, and now it's back. But like we notice those kind of things. Any little thing we just pick up on. That was great, Lydia, the way you threw that in there.
And if you're listening, you're like, I never even noticed that. Then
that's why.
That's why.
You don't notice it because we have.
We want to create. We want it to be
distraction,
excellently distraction free. Okay, so let's. What else? Like what?
How about this? What is a moment?
Favorite
moment that each of us maybe look to every week, that when we come in our jobs, what we do.
You want to go first?
Favorite moment.
I'll name one, but it might sound brown nosing a little bit.
Okay.
But me and you every Wednesday meet early to quote pray.
It is to quote pray,
and we never pray.
That sounds so bad.
It does. No, we pray a little bit.
I'm always pushing
but
us
you're,
to go.
I love the. I mean, this sounds so whatever, but I really do love the fact. Whatever job you're at, this is true. It doesn't matter if it's ministry, but there's so many studies out right now that the reason people say jobs is because they have friends there. And I love the fact that we get to do this with our friends.
It's fun.
And I love the conversations I have with you too. And I love that I know at least once a week you and I either I'm going to pop in your office to say something quick, or we're going to meet to quote pray, and we're going to end up.
We do pray. We just end up talking way more than we wanted to. And
but I love those moments. They're always life-giving conversations. And I love our podcast. This is always a fun time. I don't want to steal yours. I think one of the funniest times all week is tech meeting.
Oh yeah.
But okay, there's a specific reason why a tech meeting is so funny.
Tech meeting is.
Can we talk about why
fabulously
tech meeting is
inefficient?
Yes, it is. Let me. Okay. Let me just say.
Which sounds weird because we talk about how intentional we are.
We are, and it is. I would say, for the most part, it is about the one meeting that I am fine with it not being efficient, because I'm all about efficiency.
He really is.
I am. But of all the meetings, and here's my mindset on tech meeting, because me and Maria have often been to blame for the longevity of our tech meetings and how we don't get anything done.
I'm glad that you take ownership, because I'm usually pointed at and accused.
You
add the
jump
humor.
on to any little moment to create
More chaos.
Yes, more chaos. That's where you come in. That's your special gift, your spiritual gift, creating chaos around a moment that you find funny. And
that is very.
it is so true. It is absolutely his
I've never
spiritual
heard
gift.
my gift articulated
Yes,
in that
it
manner.
is. It is your spiritual gift.
Okay.
But okay, couple things that I see for tech meeting.
Okay.
Number one, it is for me. I feel like, and maybe a little bit of our team from Sunday and what we build up to, it feels as much about decompression as it is about planning.
That's good.
So
Yeah.
I've always thought in the back of my mind that, number one, the people that are in this room usually are the ones that are responsible for executing Sunday's experience. Whether it's our sound and light engineer, Maria, whether it's me or you from either message hosting, you as well from that hosting to
Pre-show.
online pre-show. He leads the pre-show and put it together. Pastor Trey Tucker from a worship standpoint, overall leading it. Matt, the production director, who helps do it. So everybody's in there. And if anybody is ever inside of the smaller circle of us when it comes to Sunday, there is a level of intensity. The fun, happy-go-lucky, what we do around tech meeting, goofing off, kind of drops off pretty quickly on Sundays. We still enjoy what we do,
Yeah.
but there is more of a level of intensity. You'll
Focus.
find that in focus in the text group, in the conversation. Who did this? That's not right. What happened?
Yeah.
And, oh, crap, I messed up. I did
Oh, yeah.
push
You-
the button.
you feel
I
a
did
weight.
something. You'll feel the weight of it because we take it so seriously what we do on Sunday, even though
Yeah.
we have fun when we do it.
Yep.
So I kind of like that Monday tends to be a little bit of a decompression.
Yep.
We do go back and review the previous weekend, the experience. We talk about, the goal in that is to talk about what didn't go right. And a lot of people on the team, the creative team does, they do a SWOT.
Yeah, yes, those are good
that's
things.
That's
So
a business
One
type
of our
term.
standards is evaluation, and so we use SWOT, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats.
Yeah.
We SWOT every Sunday.
Yeah.
That may
And-
surprise
and
people.
big
In every
events.
event.
Every
Yeah.
big event, people will put in what do they think went well, what was a weakness, what's an opportunity to do better in another one, or what's a new idea, opportunity, and then were there any threats to the experience? And so, we have that to go by, but then usually a lot of it's I'm bringing observations, that, hey, what happened with that graphic, that lyric? Why didn't we have a graphic for this? Why weren't we prepared for that? What happened with the lights in this moment? If it is that. And so we'll do that. And then once we're done with that, we'll move to the current, and we'll get through it. But there's a lot of hilarity to us that happens, I guess.
And I don't know why, but it just is crazy.
The mix of personalities we have in that room, and it doesn't help that I not only allow it, but I enable it
you do.
as the
You're an enabler.
lead person for the church in the room. I enable it. In fact, I've been
participate.
blamed to be one of the greatest proponents of
yes.
of creating havoc in that meeting. So I know, like my good buddy Stephen Webb, who would tell you every meeting needs to be 30 minutes and less. You come in with an agenda, hit those, and you don't play nice.
And I like what I think.
I don't. To me, I don't mind that kind of for a lot of meetings, but this one, I'm okay with it.
Well, and also, I don't know if you would view it this way. I think decompression, that's a great word. I never looked at it like that, but that really is what it is. But also for you personally, though, you are, I think, one of the many great things about the way you lead is you're very intentional. You're very actually relational. And you'll come up around and you'll talk to the team and you'll do all that. But by nature of your occupation, a lot of your
by
job
itself.
is having to be in your room alone preparing for a message because Sunday's coming.
Yeah.
So I also, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like that's one of like your that's
do.
one of your like scheduled social moments of the week.
It is. And so that's why it's the most inefficient meeting we have. It will start around 2:30 and sometimes go till 4:30.
Yeah.
Or
Or
right when we're leaving.
or right when it's time to go. Sometimes we have other things. We'll move on and planning those, and it'll go for an hour.
Talk
but
about other experiences
we
coming
could,
up.
if we were serious, nobody cracked a joke, nobody took us on a tangent. If we sat in there, also Lydia. Let me mention Lydia. She's also in the
20
room.
minutes.
Lydia's the one that's in the room that is bored out of her mind
Yeah.
when we're joking, and then we'll turn around and look at Lydia, and Lydia will go,
Can we move
Can we
on?
start now?
She-
35 minutes into it?
It's so sweet.
That happened on Monday.
Lydia, the funniest, I don't know if she's done this in a while. She used to like,
She doesn't have fun.
there's all these like people going crazy, and then all of a sudden they'll go, so
about this
next on the
weekend?"
rundown.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lydia is not amused by our candor.
No, she'll silently giggle. I'll catch her silently.
I don't think
giggling.
Lydia likes it at all.
So let's talk about some of the humor a little bit because
Why?
well, there's a couple funny things that happen. First of all, you seem to believe that new words are invented every single week. Talk to me about some of the words that you've heard in tech meeting.
Oh yeah. So in tech meeting,
Okay.
Pastor Tim and Pastor Trey and Matt.
She said, that's a lie. I love tech meeting. Well, you don't show it on your face when you say, can we move on? I'm just
Pastor
kidding.
Tim, Pastor Trey,
I'm
and
just
Matt will secretly get together before each tech meeting and be like, "What's our word of the month?" And they'll introduce a new made-up word, and they'll say it at
Okay.
least 10 times per meeting. It used to be dongles. For a while, it was
Yeah.
fiber.
Yeah.
For a while, it was gobos.
Fiber internet.
For a while,
Gobo
it was
cameras.
Romanoffs, assassins.
Okay.
And so I will occasionally take that word
Yes.
and say, well, what I think is.
Yes.
And I'll start, and then
Or
but
you'll try to use it in a
I'll
sentence.
try with a serious.
Or how
face
about
to
the
be-
other game?
Okay.
Let's start with the other
Okay.
game.
People are going to think we're really mature. All right, so there may or may not be. I will not deny or confirm.
No, there is.
There
No.
may be a group text with me, Tucker, and Maria in tech meeting where each tech meeting, one of us we will take turns giving each other a challenge of a word to try to subtly incorporate into the conversation without anybody noticing.
Yeah.
And it's usually a ridiculous word.
Yeah.
My favorite proud moment is when they gave me tangerine. And you guys were in the middle of talking about some video set, and I said, yeah. I said, I actually really resonate with that. I think what we could do is we could get our videographer and a family, I said, to really just show the power of what God can do in a family unit and show them at night, outside kind of walking together because the power of unity in a family. And they're walking up, and maybe there's a tangerine sunset being painted over the hills. And only Pastor Trey looked up and he goes, did you just say tangerine sunset? Because I wanted.
Well, but that's because half of us would expect you to say something
Yes,
crazy like
exactly.
that anyways.
Exactly.
That you would do
You
that.
would paint
oh
a picture.
my God.
A
Did you see?
tangerine that
Yeah.
painted stars.
Anyways. So tech meeting would be one of the highlights for me. Do you have a highlight?
I would say, not to piggyback off you, but I think the best moments are the moments that are unscripted and unplanned. So whether it's the lunches or it's the
Yeah.
like when we're gonna pop down and let's talk about this one thing, but it turns into strategizing and planning over other things, and those moments happen when sometimes you least expect them.
Impromptu ideation.
yeah, yeah,
It's fun.
yes.
and impromptu
Okay.
bonding.
So let's go with this.
Okay.
Let's go with this because we got to get going.
Okay.
We're running out of time. This has been a
Okay.
long episode. I think people already tuned us off. Maybe not. They might actually find this interesting. But let me give you. I wrote down some pros
Okay.
for working in ministry
Okay.
and some cons. I'll go through them kind of quickly, but if you guys have something to say, it kind of hits on one of those things. So you said pros. Here's a few pros, right? I put on here that I love what we get to do, that
Yeah.
we get to serve people and lead people spiritually.
Yep.
And I just think there's such an honor in that. Like, there's not that there's anything, not like it's better than what somebody can do in the marketplace of building a business, selling a product, doing that. But I think we feel an eternal weight and an significance is a good word,
Yeah.
and appreciation for what we get to do. And we're often, serving with people in the hardest moments. So that's also on here. That's a pro. But we get to meet with people from the church that I just think we love this, whether it's coffees, whether it's lunches. It's not often that you're getting paid to have fun in life and spiritual conversations with people.
Yeah.
And I think part of shepherding includes that.
Yeah.
Yep.
We get to be creative.
Yep.
Many workplaces don't get that. Like, you have a job to do. It's business. It's this job, this invoice, pay this vendor. That and that's the nature of the business. I think by what we do naturally, the experiences that we create, the way we're always trying to figure out how to best serve our community is most of the ideas come out of just creation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the fact that we get paid to create and to ideate and to do it in the way we do, I think that's fun.
Yeah.
Speaking to kind of what you were just saying.
Yep.
I put on here, we get some flexibility in our schedules. Partly because, and this is also maybe one of the cons, is our schedule is that what we do isn't 9 to 5, even if it is kind of 9 to 5 during the week.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that happen. There's youth that happens every Sunday night. There's band practice, tech practice that happens on Wednesday nights. There's, just events and things that happen. And so we offer that and some flexibility for people. Hey, I've got to go meet with these people this night. Oh, okay. We give them flexibility. So I think because of that, where there's not a lot of flexibility is Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, a lot of times there's flexibility in what we get to do. We get to work with some really fun people. We have fun in meetings, as we've talked, and other times.
Yep.
Rallies and staff times. We get together, we have breakfast. We go out and, every once in a while we'll do a staff lunch, or for Christmas, we'll go out and have fun. We went and did a game show thing, and it was just a lot of fun. And I hope organization you work at does some fun stuff. I think it's important to have fun together. And I think the people we work with are a lot of fun. And we get paid to be at church on Sunday. And Sunday is my favorite day of the week. I love tech meal, I love that. But I love Sundays for part of the reason is all the prep work that is, which for me, if it's preaching or that, is the stressful part. When it's done and we're there at Sunday, it's getting to be with the, it's like, you prepare, Maria was doing, you're preparing lights, you're preparing songs, you're preparing set lists, you're preparing moments, you're preparing for kids and to do something special in middle school. All of the preparation work gets to come to fruition on the Sundays.
Yeah.
And so I love Sunday.
Yeah.
I never get bored with Sundays. I look forward to it.
Yep.
I get excited.
Yep.
So those are a few pros. Do you have any other quick pros to add?
Nope.
Right.
Those are good ones.
Those are
Okay.
great.
Cons. Always dealing with unrealistic expectations.
By whatever you do mean.
We will never make everybody happy. Either music's too loud, or it's too dark in here, or there's just a myriad of, and I understand that we cannot do everything to make everybody happy. And I think that is just, it's part and parcel with the role of leading people, is that there are what I would say are sometimes unrealistic expectations, things that we can't do. And we have intentionality behind what we do, and it doesn't make people happy. And so that could be taken in so many different ways. It was just a general one to cover, I mean, we've had people who just, you don't make enough time for me. Well, I'm trying, but, you might have 30 people on your team, and they don't have as much time or whatever, and it's unrealistic, then you're not intentionally trying to do it.
Yep.
So with that, I put on here, we get to meet with people. The double-edged sword. I think one of the pros to what ministry is if you're a people person, you get to connect with people. And I am, again, not everybody is probably wired like I am, an extrovert who really, I get filled up. That's why you'll never see me hiding in my office like on Sundays when I'm not preaching. Like I'm out here during worship, I'm out in the foyer, I'm just with people all the time because I love that. And I think that's a privilege to be able to lead people, I've had incredible, like you talked about, just moments with conversations with people where you're getting, they're asking you for help. It's spiritual help or life help. And it feels like an honor to be able to provide some ideas and things for people in their journey. I think the other end of that is that it can be really hard because we have to deal with really tough things. In ministry, you're dealing with painful situations. You're dealing with brokenness. You're dealing with addiction. You're dealing with really complicated people coming to us because tragedy, trauma just happened. And you can't help but carry the weight of that sometimes. Emotionally, you know what I mean? So, and some people are difficult. Sometimes you just deal with difficult people. Doesn't matter what you do. They're just difficult. And so, I think it's a double-edged sword. Another con, we have to have a lot of hard conversations. We have to tell people no. We have to step people down from positions or roles because of problems, and that is never fun. And I'm not saying that other people don't in business, because I think you have to have hard conversations everywhere, but I think sometimes the perception is everybody in ministry is just, it's just one big happy family, and it's just so much fun. You just get to be with everybody and love it. No, we also have to have hard conversations with people.
Yeah. Can I add on a strength that I remembered, or a pro?
Yeah.
Kind of connect to that. And again, this is probably, I won't declare this for every church, but for our kind of church culture, you can't be working in our kind of church culture and not continually grow in your gifts.
Yeah.
Like you will, if you're going to keep working at a place like this, you're going to grow in leadership. You're going to grow in your ability to have hard conversations.
Yeah.
You're going to grow in communication. You're going to grow even in organization. You're going to, it's going to continue to grow you as a human and in your skill set.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge pro.
It is a pro. And the flip
challenge.
side of it, the challenge is you need to grow.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it won't go well.
Yeah.
Like, we all have to do it. This is another one I put on here. Church kind of gets ruined when you're on staff.
Yeah.
Like, the idea of just being able to go to church and enjoy, and you find when you go visit other places, it's so hard when you're responsible for putting on a service, an experience, the space, to whether it's here or any place you go, you're just like ruined. You're just like, why are they doing that? That was really awkward. 3 seconds. Why was nothing happening right in that moment? Why, you know what I mean? Again, part of that is because of the way we approach.
Yeah.
church.
I'm weird. I don't know. Do you agree
It
with
doesn't
that?
bother you.
No, so I'm weird. It does, I notice, I can't turn off. Well, I don't know. It's funny, EJ, because I think I told y'all, we were in this, all these pastors, 50 from around the country are getting up, and we're all standing up saying something to EJ and Rachel. And I, afterwards, I'm like, I'm the least spiritual person in this entire room. I mean, everybody, part of it is we're intentionally not churchy in our language.
Right.
But anyways, one of the things EJ asked me to do, he said, on Saturday night, he goes, hey, I know how you're wired, I know how you think. I want you to write down all your observations and send them to me.
Yeah.
So I spent my plane flight back. I mean, those novels, pages and pages and pages. And I sent it to him Tuesday. I haven't heard back from him, so we'll see how
that went.
But I will say, and there were several things I noticed that, drove me crazy. But I will say, if I'm going to another church, I will observe and write down stuff I think is cool. But there is a part of me that can compartmentalize.
Yeah.
And can say, no, during worship, I'm going to close my eyes, not see anything, and lose myself in worship.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to posture myself to receive from the message. So I don't know. Ruined would be a strong word for me. I don't know that it's ruined it for me.
I don't mean ruined, but
I don't know.
It probably depends on the environment I'm in.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you're in an environment that values excellence and those things, it's a little bit easier for me to compartmentalize and do that.
True.
So that's how I'd answer that question.
Yeah. I've just been so nitpicky when it comes to sound and the mix and the quality of that, and the atmosphere in the room, and the quality of every piece and part and all that stuff. So, and again, I don't think we're the best and all that. We're not, but we strive for it. So it's an intentionality that we have.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say ruin, but it does make it hard for me to receive.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
I put on this: weekends are never really free.
Yeah.
You're always on. You can't really miss. And maybe that's a little bit more role dependent, but and we get our weekends on Friday and Saturday, depending on the role you're in. So I'm not complaining about that, but it's not the whole, hey, in some jobs, it's like, oh, we're going to go for the weekend down to Cincinnati and do that. It's like, it's hard to do that when you have a spouse that works during the week. You end up getting a very short window. Not a complaint, but it's what we do, right?
Same for holidays.
Huh?
Same for holidays.
Except for?
I said same for holidays.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on if the holiday falls on a particular whatever.
I'm saying, for me specifically, with my family out of town, I've not made it back for Christmas Eve with my parents probably in 9 years.
That can't be true, because we didn't have anything Christmas Eve probably 3 years ago. We have the last couple years. Didn't you go early?
3 years ago may have been when I got food poisoning.
But
what I'm saying is it's just that's part of it.
Yeah.
Is Easter and Christmas. That's your game day.
Yeah, you're on.
That's your Super Bowl.
Yeah, you're not planning. Well, and so again, this is not a complaint. It's a con.
Yeah.
And it's even around Easter every year when our kids were in school, at the school they're at, spring break, they always put around Easter. So they'd go, here's 2 days off the week before Easter, and here's a day after or 2 days after. You're not planning a trip. We're
Yeah.
never gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, for example, this weekend. It's a 3-day weekend this weekend with Martin Luther King Day on Monday. And so some people would like say, oh, I'm going to take the weekend and I'm going to like go Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
Yeah.
Monday.
Yeah.
And we won't be able to do that.
Yeah.
So
No.
That's a good reminder.
Yeah. Yeah.
you forgot. You
forgot,
forgot.
didn't you?
We didn't talk about it on Monday, did we? Did y'all talk about it?
I don't know. We did.
Yes.
Anyways,
We-
we're having
we
current.
did.
I put on here that at times we're required to be at a lot of events outside of your work hours. Just because we serve a community that also work during the week,
Last time
and
we
most
had-
of our events are in the evenings or Saturday mornings or
Last time
Sunday
we
nights
had
or
circle leader training.
Yeah.
That was here.
yeah. So there's things like that. I put on there already. We sit with people in really dark situations, tough times. It's hard not to carry that. I put just last couple ones. Relationships with employees and your spiritual family get blurred, and it can be painful when you have to deal with work problems. You know, like you build such a family community, plus you have a spiritual mission. You really feel like you're on a team and you're trying to do something. And so this is common with any church. This isn't just our church. I'm just saying that it's really hard because in work, I tell this to people in business. I'm like, in work, you have a problem with an employee, you deal with it. They don't like you. It doesn't matter. You're not going to see them except in work unless you fire them.
Yeah.
But in a church, especially that, they become your close, like you become close friends. Your families become connected. They do things together. Your kids know each other and play together. Your spouses know each other, you know. And so when there's a challenge, a work one you're trying to do, and you can't, and it creates a fracture and it affects your relationships.
Yeah, it really does. There's that verse where David said, if it was my enemy that would have turned his back, but it was my brother. There really is a beauty but danger in spiritual community because it creates a tie that's so intimate and so powerful that when there is, people forget church is made up of human beings. So there's going to be disagreements, there's going to be offenses. People are going to fail. Leaders are going to fail.
Yeah.
And we're going to fail each other.
Yeah.
And when we do, it hurts worse.
Yeah.
Because it's a spiritual
Yeah.
bond.
Yeah.
And then added on to that is what the thing you're speaking to is the complexity of leading, where you're having to just to cipher through, am I just wearing a leader hat? Am I just wearing an employer hat? Am I also wearing a pastoral hat with this person? Like
Friend hat? What is it?
How do I seamlessly, artfully navigate between these roles in the people's lives that I'm leading?
Yeah.
And it's complex and it's
Yeah.
sticky and it's evolves.
Yeah. And it's rare to have people who are on staff that if it's not working out, even if it's mutual, step off staff, but stay in community.
Yes.
Yes.
It happens, but it's rare.
It is rare.
Because there's so much around it's complicated. It's just messier.
So
than
hats
I
off
think
to Kevin.
In the marketplace, I think it's still hard, but you don't almost have to worry about ever seeing that person again. But when you've been in a small group with them, when everybody's friend, you know what I mean? It creates that. And with that, I put on, because of the way we have to operate the business side, last thing was often people mischaracterize you or say hurtful things about you because of decisions that you have to make in a leadership role for a community.
But can we add on to that? But you can't respond.
But you can't
put on there that it's not always fun taking the high road in those kinds of situations. So it's funny how we just immediately know what we're talking about.
Yes.
And it's just hard because, you just have, you got to navigate that.
I think those are great. I when you mentioned you were going to maybe go through some of those, I was trying to get some in my mind, and a lot of them you just hit. And I think all those are great. A couple, one, I'm going to mention it and move on because neither one of you have to deal with this. But when you're in pastoral ministry, dating is tricky. And anyways, we'll move on from that. And then also, I will say this. I think it sounds really spiritual, but when you're in vocational ministry on the front lines of building the church, there is a spiritual target on your back.
Yeah.
And there's it is really hard to explain.
Yeah.
But I do believe the level of spiritual attack increases.
Yeah. That's good.
And it's hard to quantify that, but it's there.
Yeah.
I will say this. I don't even know if this is a con as much as I'm curious if you noticed this in the IT world, if you noticed this. One of the things that surprised me when I moved into full-time ministry was the emotional fortitude it would take to have to be emotionally, spiritually on and full so often. So like,
Yeah.
I've told my story before, but basically when I went on to full-time vocational ministry, at the time I'd pretty much been a full-time volunteer for a decade, and I'd gone up to help plant a church. And but at the time, to pay bills, I'd gone from retail management to helping as much as I could at the church, but also serving tables at a really fun, high-paced restaurant for like 20, 30 hours a week. And I mean, I was on cloud 9 when my pastor called and said, "Hey, I'm ready for you to start full-time. When can you start?"
Yeah.
What I was surprised by was I didn't factor in how much it had actually helped me emotionally to have an escape, so to
Yeah.
speak, from all the pastoring in this job where, I don't want to say it's mindless, but literally, you serve tables long enough, do anything with your hands long enough,
Yeah.
you can kind of like turn off that part and escape and decompress. And I didn't realize
you can
how
disassociate.
yeah, in a way, that was a healthy balance for me.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I didn't have that, and now I'm on 24/7.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if I'm emotionally empty. I have to have this conversation with this person.
Yep.
And because if you're emotionally empty, you can still go and get your feet moving and your hands moving at a restaurant
Yep.
and kind of like work yourself out of it and get
Yep.
lost in your head and whatever.
Yep.
But if you're, especially depending on your role in ministry, some are more hands-on than others, but if your role is mainly people, like,
Oh, it's hard.
if you're emotionally empty, you still have to have the conversation.
It's very hard.
If you feel spiritually empty,
Yeah.
you still have to pastor.
Yep.
Yep.
And to borrow TD Jakes, you got to lead while you bleed sometimes,
Yep.
and that can be really tough.
It very much so can.
So that'd be another one I'd put.
Even preaching and preparing messages, if you feel spiritually depleted, that's a really hard place to be
It
from.
is. Yeah.
And you know what I mean? But you
Yeah.
still have to on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you could be going through an emotional or personal pain, and you have to. I don't think you have to leave it. I think it's okay, like you said, what TD Jake said.
Lead
You
while
know,
you
to
bleed.
lead while you bleed. But I think there's a level where you still have to do something. You still have a job to do.
Yep.
Whether it's lead worship, you still have to do
Yeah.
this. I think you just hopefully can do it from an authentic place, but it's hard to do that if you're struggling.
It's very much, and I think that's common across the board because I think we sit around here and all of us recognize that and feel that way. But I think that's something that maybe people don't realize.
Yeah.
That when you're having a conversation with someone who's on staff or a pastor, for example, a lot of times you might not even realize what they're going through or what's going on because of this thing. And
Can I say it this way too? This just kind of comes to me. I feel like if you're in general working on church staff, it is easier to stay more spiritually protected because there's just accountability and there's, but I feel like it may shock people. I feel like coming onto church staff, while it's easier to be spiritually protected, it's harder to stay spiritually connected.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, and I actually thank God for this. I'm glad for this because this helps me. This is a confirmation to me that my journey is genuine.
Yeah.
But I mean, for 15 years before I was ever paid a cent to follow Jesus, I mean, I was the kid that was, spending every spare second at the church and in prayer meetings and doing all these things. And sometimes, to my shame, I look back, I'm like, man, I was more spiritual before I was on a church staff than I am now. And I actually think it takes more intentionality when you're on church staff to
It does.
remember your why
it does.
and to stay connected to the reason you got into it.
It does.
Because you can get so caught up in the mechanisms and the mechanics of doing for God
Yeah.
and easily feel justified or forget that you haven't been with God.
Yep.
And I just think it's actually harder on staff. I think people think, man, I love
Easiest place
Jesus.
to hide.
It is the easiest place to hide. I think people think, man, I'm so in love with Jesus, I will just, on staff, it'd be even easier. And I'm just like,
No, it's.
in some ways, but in some ways not.
I think remember I talked about this at our staff
Yep.
conference.
I was actually just going to bring this up.
and I actually think it is harder. I think it's easier to fake it around a spiritual. In other words, you can think because I'm around a spiritual environment, therefore I am being spiritual,
But you're not.
but you may not be.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great way to say it. It's probably more spiritual spiritually protected because you're not given a lot of leash in maybe a different business world and whatever to go run and end up making really bad decisions, doing some wrong things. Maybe that's a little bit harder to do in this environment, but I do agree. I think it's way harder to be spiritually connected. I think that's a major transition that a lot of people aren't expecting and ready for, and I think it becomes a really hard. I've seen people, I feel like, almost decline spiritually when they've come on staff. And I think it's because you have to have a certain amount of intentionality. I think you get a little jaded to things. I think you get a different perspective. You get a little. I think that all happens, and I think it happens because ministry can kind of jade you.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of sum up what you were saying earlier, ministry of all businesses is a people business.
Yep.
Which means you get the high highs
Yep. And the
of people and the low. I mean, you get
Yeah.
the most visceral joy of seeing people's lives change,
Yes.
of watching them grow, of watching them give their lives to Jesus,
Agree.
of watching them go on and do ministry and flourish in their lives, of having spiritual connection. And you get just as visceral a pain when you can't make people stop making stupid decisions. You can't make people follow Jesus. You can't make people rise in their potential. You can't. The betrayal hurts even worse.
Yeah.
When you pour your life into people and
Yep.
then there's a decision they don't like and they just walk without a conversation. Like there's just you have the deepest joys and frustrations
Yep.
of working with people in ministry.
This is why you have to have, in my opinion, if you're going to work in ministry, a very clear understanding of why
Yeah.
you want to work in ministry.
Yeah.
Because if you don't,
Yeah.
there will be moments in your time working on church as a staff where you feel like your faith is being challenged. You feel like you're losing sight of it. And if you don't have that anchor to tie yourself back
Yes.
to why you
Yeah.
started
Yep.
this in the process, you will
Yeah.
fall away. You will end up moving out of ministry.
Yeah.
You'll find something to numb the disconnect that you feel. And so if you don't have that secure, clear understanding
Yeah.
of your calling and why you felt called to it, I think this is why we see people fall away.
Yep.
Any person who lasts long in ministry, and I'm talking more than a couple of years.
Yeah.
Any person who lasts a long time has this clear understanding of why they're doing what they're doing and why it matters. Because if you don't, because of what we're talking about, it's easy to just
Yeah, the word
lose
you
sight of it.
used, I think, so important. We would use kind of in a spiritual context. If you don't have a deep sense of calling
Yes.
that you can circle back to in the tough times, you won't last. And I think this is probably important because we have a lot of people ask us, like, "Oh, I think I'd love to be in ministry." If you think joining church full time is a good idea because you think it'd be a good idea,
Change of pace or lifestyle
Yeah,
or be
don't do
fun
it.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Like
it is not good to join ministry because you think it would be a good idea. And maybe this is like a little bit of like,
Or how about this? Or you can't stand your current job.
Yep.
yes.
So you go, wow, I have fun on Sundays, and they look like they have fun, and I'd rather work there because it's
Yep.
Yeah.
not fun working here.
Yeah. I don't know what they told you. I've heard a lot of people in different denominational contexts all say the same thing. So I think there's some universal truth to it. But for me, when I was talking to answer the question of the person in Seattle, I said, everybody's calling looks different. I said, when it comes to your gifting and calling, God will use people to affirm you. There's a double-edged sword. You should never do anything for the applause of people.
Yeah.
But God will use people to affirm your giftings and callings. But for me, part of it was my personality type. I'm an all-in person. So
Yeah.
the moment Jesus crashed into my world, I couldn't imagine doing anything else with my life. And my youth pastor at the time, he spoke into what he saw in me. And one of the things he told me that his mentor told him, he had told him, son, if you can imagine yourself doing anything else in life, you better do it.
There you go.
You should only do ministry if you can be unable to do anything with your life. And I've thought about this a lot again lately because there's so many things I want to do. Like I want to open restaurants. I want to write books. I do. I love to cook. I love to travel. I love to write. I love to consult. I love to create things like. And so I'm like, I almost got like worried the other day. But then kind of a nuanced thought hit me. I can imagine myself doing so many things in addition to ministry.
Right.
But to this day, 25 years later, I can't imagine myself doing anything instead of ministry.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's good. Good way to
And
put
so,
it.
and so for me, that sense of calling has got to be paramount.
Yep.
And I think on top of that, I heard Shelley Giglio say, maybe this is some of what we're saying. She said, to survive in ministry, you've got to learn the art of having thick skin and tender heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You can fall into one of those two extremes where you just get callous,
Yeah.
and cynical, or you're just so sensitive and secure that you
You don't want to be thick-hearted or tender-skinned.
no. Tender heart, thick skin. That's just any area of life. That's
Yeah.
a great combination.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's
good.
really good.
I'm actually talking about calling this weekend.
There we
Come
go.
on.
Let's do it.
So this episode will be a good segue to it
Yep.
for anybody who's stuck with us this long to listen.
It's
Yes.
It's been a minute.
a while.
It's
So-
been a long
Wow.
one.
Well, hopefully,
Yeah.
if you're listening, you enjoyed this. We're on the other side of the curtain, so we don't really know what interests people. So if you're listening to this and it spurred on some questions, that
Yeah.
you're like, hey, this is some practical or, I don't know, some basic things I'd be curious behind
Yeah.
the scenes ministry, what it looks like. Please send in your questions to the podcast at the X.church. It's podcast at the X.church. Send us in your questions, and we'll riff some more on it if there's any interest.
Yeah.
But Homeschool Harry, thank you for joining us.
Still got to work on that one.
We got to workshop the nickname.
Yeah.
And until next time, we will see you next week.
Hey guys, it's Russ. Thanks so much for listening. We really believe if we can get around tables instead of behind screens, if we can talk to each other instead of at each other, we can make the world better. To help us do that, here are a few things you can do to help. First, if you haven't yet, leave a review on Apple or Spotify and hit subscribe on YouTube. This helps more than you know. Also, if you have been impacted by the community out of which this podcast comes, that's X-Church. Maybe you're local or you've been touched by the messages and impact across the country, even the world. I want to encourage you to support this work. A powerful life principle is to invest in the people and places that invest in you. And so I want to invite you to do that right now by going to thex.church/give. You can give a one-time small gift, a sacrificial gift, or even become a recurring partner. Together, let's keep elevating the conversation, thinking higher, loving deeper, and making the world better. Cheers.